Welcome to the SER215 project for Group 14. My name is Evan Borchard. I'm going to walk you through the design part of the project. Early on we communicated via email, talked about Yahtzee as a project and decided to go with it. It's a large enough game design that it could be divided up amongst the group. So the way we envision the game going is that the user would get the instructions, or if they didn't need them, they'd just go straight to getting the player name, roll to see who goes first. The game would start. Either the computer would go first or the player would go first. If the computer goes first, it decides how it wants to score, goes to the next turn. The player will roll the dice, will be able to score the dice in the category they want it scored. And then we go back to the next turn. So it goes back and forth between the player and the computer until 13 turns have happened, and then it would announce the winner and give the player the option to play again or close out the game. The initial design had 4 classes. A game class that basically handled all the calling of the turns from computer to player. The turn, one of the more complex classes, needed to be able to think how the computer was going to play, so it would roll the dice as many times as it needed to and then play for the computer. The turn class would roll the dice for the player as many times as they wanted and then pass it to the scoring class, where the player would then be able to score in the categories that hadn't been scored up to that point. The player class was an object that would represent the player and would represent the computer and would hold scores. It would also calculate the total score, add in the bonuses when necessary. Originally, we didn't know graphic user interface was going to be required, so it was an optional class. Once we knew that graphic user interface would be required, we did alter the design a bit, but we decided we would finish our classes that we were going to work on individually and then collaborate to put together the main display class. The new design only had 4 classes. We rolled the game class into the display class because it ends up being an event-based game. Most of everything happens in here with button pushes and then player name being entered and instructions being given. We still have the turn class. The turn class would modify the graphic user interface to either display what the computer has played and or let the player roll the dice as many times as they needed. Then it would pass that to the scoring class, which would modify the graphic user interface to allow the player to score in only the categories that hadn't been scored, so it only shows them the categories that are still yet to be scored. The display class then modifies the player object and the computer object each turn to update the scoreboard and to show what the progress is throughout the game. Eventually it announces the winner. Once we finished coding and had a playable game, we added in a couple of additional design characteristics. Design 2-player mode, various difficulty levels for the computer, colored background variations to help the scoreboard show it better, and then a button to show the version and the people who designed it. These were all added in once the game was playable. This sums up the various design aspects of the game. Jason will take us through the actual coding of the game.
Hello, my name is Jason Shawcross, and I'll be doing a brief run-through of our code. As you can see, we have 4 classes. Our first class is the display class, which is our application entry point. It creates and adds the Java Swing components that make up our graphical user interface. Since our application is event-driven, most of the action listeners waiting for button clicks are contained in this class. The main gameplay method that drives the game through 13 turns, the method for changing the score display, as well as methods for setting up the game such as asking for instructions, asking for the players' names, setting the computer difficulty, and choosing a 1 or 2 player game are here as well. Lastly, this class creates objects of the players class for each player, which leads us to the players class. This class is used to keep score for the players by using an array. Any index in the array that is set to -1 means that category has not yet been scored. The last 3 indexes are used to keep track of overall score as well as bonus scoring. There are getter and setter methods for the score, as well as a reset score method used to reset the score array for when a new game is started after another game has finished. Our next class is the turn class. This class has methods related to the actual turns of the players and how they roll or keep their dice. The dice rolls are kept in an array that are passed to various methods, and the roll dice methods are passed an array of booleans that tell it which dice to roll. For human players, the player turn method rolls the dice up to 3 times and then passes the dice array onto the scoring class when the player is finished. For a computer player, the computer turn method rolls the dice and then called the grade dice method, which assigns that roll a grade based on the amount of each die face that was rolled. Then the computer turn decides what to score or re-roll based on that grade and what has already been scored. It finishes by setting the score for the computer player's object, changing the display, and then passing back to the gameplay method of the display class. The final class is the scoring class. This class has the player score class, which is called from the turn class and passed the dice array. It uses the player's object to create an array of the current score status for that player's object. It then calls the getPlayScore method, which runs through the array and creates a radio button for each unscored category that also shows what that player can score with that category. This method, as well as the computer turn method from the turn class, use the calculate method, which is past the array of dice as well as a category. It then returns what the score will be for that category with those dice. This finishes up our overview of our code. Next up, we have Jason Young, who will be doing a demo of the game itself.
Hello, this is Jason Young. Now that you've taken a look at the design and the coding, we're going to take a quick look at the actual game. So this is the display board that you see when you first start up the program. It gives you a little bit of information over here. Here's all the scoring that we'll take a look at as we go through. And we have the option if you want to be a 1-player or 2-player. We'll do 1 player for this game. Oh, then we get the option of do you need instructions? We'll say yes. Here's the instructions really quick. Just gives you the breakdown of how to play the game of Yahtzee. Then we're ready to play. So I'll put in my name. And then there's an option of difficulty. In hardcore, the computer cheats, so we're not going to play that. We'll just go with a regular for this demonstration. Then over here we get to see who we're going to roll to see who goes first. The computer one. So we will start the game. So over here we get the rolls. You can roll up to 3 times. It shows the computer rolled all 3 times, and the best score they got was full house. Once it's highlighted in yellow, that means that's been used and it can't be scored in again. And then they get the total over here for 25. And down here, it tells you what happened. The computer rolls the dice and scores a full house for 25 points. So when we click next, it's my turn. And here we get to see the pictures of the dice. This was my first roll. So this is what my first roll looks like. I don't know, we'll keep 4. So if we click these check boxes, these are the dice we're going to keep, and then we re-roll the other 2. So we got, we can go for a full house real quick. And I did not get it. Here is my 3 rolls. So when I click finish, it's going to give me the option of how I want to score. Now you can see all the different options on scoring. I'm going to take 4s because it's the lowest one, or it's the highest of the lowest scoring ones. And you can see as I choose that, that's now yellow, which means it can't be scored in again. The computer's rolled their next one, and it tells you the computer rolls a dice and scores 3 of a kind at 14 points. Then I get to do again. We're going to skip to the end at this point so you can see what the ending looks like. Okay, here we are at the end of the game. I'm going to choose my last score. And you can see over here, I won 267 to 118. Here's our display area. It turns green, says I win. Do you want to play again? We have the option of playing again or exiting. If we click play again, everything clears out. We get to start over. It does your roll for you, and you get to start the game. And that's our game. You can just keep going and going as often as you want to. Thanks so much for watching.